forwards and futures is over. The pricing and the conceptual thinking behind futures contracts in any market is exactly the same as what we have studied for forwards. Only futures are more standardized concepts, and the slight difference between forwards and futures we will study next. So we entered into the forward contract. The agreed upon price was $100. So at t equal to 1, I will buy and pay 100, and the seller will receive 100 and deliver the product. Let's say the price of product at maturity is 200 and the seller simply runs away. That is, when the time of delivery came at t equal to 1, he was just not there to honor his obligation. So I didn't buy at 100, I actually had to pay 200 to buy it. Is this a risk in forward contracts? It definitely is. So forward contracts per se are called OTC contracts, or over the counter contracts. That is, two counterparties are entering into an agreement, and yes, the judicial system should help them in the enforcement of that contract, but if somebody reneges, then for $100 it will be tough to get into the whole legal process to recover your money. Hence, what we can do, or what exchanges do, is they standardize these contracts and help investors from this credit risk, or this risk of one party reneging on its obligation, by defining something called as futures contracts. The futures contracts trade on organized exchanges. They are not over the counter contracts. Now what these exchanges do is they standardize the performance or the delivery of the contract. For stocks and bonds, it's not a big issue because anyways the contract is in an electronic format. But in the case of commodities, standardization becomes a big problem. So let's say I bought 100 kgs of rice, and when the time of delivery comes, there would be disagreement upon the quality of rice, and two counterparties may not agree on what was agreed upon and what is being delivered. So the exchange ensures that what is the definition of the product, or 100 shares or 100 lots of this stock, or 100 kgs of a particular quality of rice, so that both buyer and seller are assured that they have to deliver a given quality and the buyer will receive a given quality. Very importantly, exchanges maintain something called as a clearinghouse. So when two counterparties enter a futures contract, let's say one agreed to buy the asset for $100 and the seller agreed to sell the asset for $100. To begin with, nobody is in the money or out of the money, because the value of the contract, please remember, we derived as S minus K e raised to power minus RT. To begin with, K is the same as S e raised to power RT. The strike price or the forward price is defined as S e raised to power RT, or the value of the contract would be S minus S, that is 0. So to begin with, when the spot price is the same as S naught and the forward price is S naught e raised to power RT, there is nobody who's in the money or out of the money, otherwise there will be an arbitrage opportunity. As time passes, if 100 becomes 200, buyer is in the money. If 100 becomes 10, seller is in the money. One counterparty can be in the money or out of the money. Now what an exchange does is that even though nobody is in the money or out of the money, both of them will have to deposit something called as initial margin, which is, for example, 20% of the value of the contract. So even though nobody is in the money, both of them will have to put in $20 with the exchange. This is done to ensure that if one counterparty is in a loss, the exchange can itself cash settle the contract because it has a margin from both counterparties. So he can just take $10 from here and give it to the other counterparty if the other counterparty is in a gain and this one is in a loss. So even if he runs away, there's no problem. And then the exchange marks to market the contract every day. So every day, now the S will change. Our K has already been fixed. So the spot price will change and hence the value of the contract will keep changing. If the value of the contract moves such that counterparty A or the seller has a loss of $15, then what is his remaining margin with the exchange? Only $5 because $15 already is in a loss. If S went up, for example, seller would be in a loss. What the exchange would do is now ask him to pay up more margin. So that if he goes into a $15 loss further, then there is money with the exchange. And if he refuses to pay that margin, if he refuses to pay the other $10, the exchange will simply square off the contract. So he will long it, return his $5 and pay the $15 to the long counterpart. So both the buyer and the seller don't see each other in a futures contract. For them, the counterparty is only the exchange. For the buyer also the exchange, and for the seller also the exchange is the counterpart. So there is an initial margin that everybody has to put up, and there is a maintenance margin. For example, $10. So if 20 becomes 19 because of a $1 loss, exchange won't bother you. Till $11, $12 also if you have margin, that's fine. Exchange will see the daily fluctuation that normally happens in the stock and then decide the margin amount. So if the volatility is not much, then a 10% maintenance margin is what the exchange has decided. That is, when your position goes below $10, if you have a loss of $11 and this 20 becomes $9, then you will have to top up or you will have to put up more margin to bring your balance back to the initial margin. So you'll have to in one shot pay $11 more and bring it back to $20. So that's how futures are standardized contracts with no credit risk, because the exchange has a clearinghouse that keeps this margining and then it marks to market the value of the contract daily by the process of S minus K raised to power minus RT. Then on futures, a lot of data is available. In an over-the-counter contract, if me and you are entering into a contract, the whole world doesn't know about it. But in a futures contract, the whole world does know, because the exchange publishes the volumes and the open interest every day. Open interest is how many long contracts are outstanding in any particular day, which will be the same as how many short contracts are outstanding, because for every long there has to be a short. This is the total number of contracts outstanding, the open interest, and the total trade or the total volume that happened. So a lot of analysis can be done with futures and data from the futures markets. So an investor enters into a short position in a gold futures contract at USD 294.2. Each futures contract controls 100 troy ounces. The initial margin is USD 3,200 and the maintenance margin is USD 2,900. At the end of the first day, the futures price drops to 286.6. Which of the following is the amount of variation margin at the end of the day? So variation margin is the difference that needs to be paid to bring the balance back up to initial margin. Please solve. So he short the contract at 294.2 and now the value of the contract or the price has dropped to 286.6. So what is his loss? Please note guys, this is a trick question. He is in a short position. So he's selling at 294.2, and if the price falls, it's very good for him. He'll buy it at 286.6. He actually has a gain on each troy ounce of 294.2 minus 286.6. If we changed this question to a long position, then there would be a loss of this amount. Right now, there is no margin required. In fact, he can withdraw some margin. That is, his position has gained. So he has to keep only 20%. Some margin can be used for other investments. If it was a long position, however, there would have been a loss of 7.6 per troy ounce. For 100 troy ounces, it would have been 760. 760 would have made the value of his position from 3200 to 3200 minus 760, which is 2440. 2440 is less than 2900. Hence, the margin call would have been triggered, and he would have had to put enough margin to bring it back up to 3200. That is the initial margin. So he would have had to pay another 760 only if it was a long. In a short, there would be no margin required. In fact, he can withdraw $760. That is the gain that he has. Which of the following statements is incorrect regarding the margining of exchange traded futures contracts? So day trades and spread transactions require lower margin levels. That is correct, because these transactions will have lesser fluctuation. The exchange keeps a margin so as to cover one day's maximum loss, because at the end of the day anyways it's mark to marketing and new margin is being asked for. So in one day, if the loss is more than 20%, only then there is a credit risk, because up till 20% movement he has already kept margin. So in spread transactions where you are buying as well as selling, the fluctuations are not as high. Hence, exchange may choose to keep a lower margin than for general long or short positions. If an investor fails to deposit variation margin in a timely manner, the positions may be liquidated by the carrying broker. That is correct. Initial margin is the amount of money that must be deposited when a contract is opened. That is correct. A margin call will be issued only if the investor's margin account balance becomes negative. That is incorrect. Whenever it goes below the maintenance margin, a margin call will be triggered. It doesn't have to become negative. So D is the incorrect statement and the right answer in this case. Now we studied that the forwards price is derived as S e raised to power RT. Theoretically, apart from the standardization and margining that futures does, nothing has changed. So the futures price should also be S e raised to power RT. The only difference in a futures contract as against a forward is the process of mark to marketing that happens every day that doesn't happen in a forward contract. So at t equal to 0, if I entered a contract for 1 year, at t equal to 0.5 in a futures, I can easily extinguish, simply short a 6-month contract if I was long a 1-year contract. In a forward, however, it will be difficult because you'll have to find another counterparty that is willing to take an opposite position in a 6-month contract. So essentially, extinguishing or cancelling a forward contract is tougher than offsetting a futures contract. Now, in futures contract, however, there is a margin requirement. If you're in a loss, you'll have to put up more and more margin money, and that margin money has some cost that you will not need to spend in a forwards contract because there is no margin and there is no mark to marketing happening every day. Now what theory says is that if my asset price is positively related to interest rates. That is, when asset goes up, interest rates also go up. And when asset goes down, interest rate also goes down. And I am in a futures contract. Is this situation beneficial to the long or detrimental to the long? So if I am the long counterparty, as the asset price goes up, I gain. So I can withdraw some margin because my margin balance now has become over and above what is required. I can withdraw the margin and invest it at a higher rate of interest. When asset prices fall, I will have to put up more margin because the long will gain or the long will lose if asset prices fall. If stock price goes down, I have already agreed to buy it at some price. I will be able to sell it at a lower price. So stock goes down, the long loses. The long loses in a future contract, he'll have to put up more margin. But that more margin can be borrowed at a lower rate of interest as interest rates have also fallen. It would be detrimental to the short. As asset goes up, short loses. Short loses, he has to put up more margin. And that more margin will now be borrowed at a higher rate of interest. If asset prices go down, short gains. Now he gains, but the margin that he withdraws, he can invest only at a lower rate. So if asset prices are positively correlated with interest rates, then in a futures contract, this position is beneficial to the long. So in a futures contract, the long will have to pay a slightly higher price to induce the short into investing with him. The short and the long both realize that this position is beneficial to the long. The short will say that at S equal to RT or S e raised to the power RT, I don't want to sell it to you. The fair forward price is S e raised to the power RT. With such a correlation, short says, I will not sell to you at S e raised to the power RT. So the long also realizes this benefit that he has. So the long will be willing to pay a slightly higher price than the corresponding forward price. Because if the long pays a slightly higher price to the short, then this benefit will get negated. So he has a loss, or the short has a disadvantage here, but that is being made up for by a slightly higher price that the short is receiving or that the long is willing to give him. If there is no correlation, then futures and forwards should be equal. If asset prices are slightly or highly positively correlated with interest rates, then the futures price will be slightly higher than the forward price. And similarly, the other way around, we can decide that if the correlation is negative, that is, if asset prices go up, interest rates fall. And when asset prices go down, interest rates go up. Then the situation would be slightly beneficial to the short counterparty. When he gains, interest rates are high, and when he loses, interest rates are low. So he can borrow at a low rate and he can invest at a high rate. So the long will not enter the contract in the futures unless the long is asked to pay a slightly lower price, or the short is willing to accept a slightly lower price. So if there's a negative correlation, remember the futures price must be slightly lower than the corresponding forward price. This phenomena is also known as the convexity effect. So for assets that are strongly positively correlated with interest rates, long dated futures contracts will have higher prices than long dated forward contracts. This phenomena is more applicable for long dated or long maturity contracts, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts. For short term contracts, it doesn't have as much of an impact. So that was about the review on forwards and futures, a very, very important concept for the FRM exam and for risk management. We will do a lot of risk management using these forwards and futures. As you can see, they are used to hedge our risk. The corn farmer needed it, the corn manufacturer needed it. So a lot of applications of forwards and futures in risk management as we will come in the coming sessions. Make sure you practice a lot of questions, make sure you understand all the calculations and you solve many problems. Use your question bank, use any other source, and make sure you master this concept. So thanks a lot and see you next time.